All right, ready to dig in. This deep dive is taking us into the world of sustainable gardening, and we've got a feeling you're going to love it.
Absolutely. We've got a fantastic mix of sources lined up for you, practical tips, inspiring stories, even some surprising health benefits you might not expect.
So less about battling those pesky dandelions and more about like how to turn your balcony into a salad bar, right?
Exactly. Because that's what we're all about, giving you the know-how to create a sustainable garden that thrives no matter your space or experience level.
Love that. So whether you've got a sprawling backyard or just a sunny windowsill, there's a sustainable solution out there for you. Speaking of finding what works, one of the sources mentions something about microclimates. What's the deal with that?
Oh, it's fascinating. It's all about those little pockets within your space that have their own unique growing conditions. Even something as simple as a south-facing wall can create a microclimate.
So it's not just about the general climate where you live, but these smaller variations within your own space.
Exactly. Like, have you ever noticed how a certain corner of your yard stays shady all day, even in summer? That's a microclimate.
I'm starting to see my own backyard in a whole new light, literally.
That's the idea. Those little variations can actually be your secret weapon for growing success.
Okay, I'm hooked. But before we get too carried away picking out our dream plants, one of the sources emphasized that sustainable gardening isn't just about being eco-friendly, it's about creating a system that's resilient, something that thrives year after year. What are your thoughts on that?
I couldn't agree more. It's about working with nature, not against it. And that's where things like crop rotation come in.
Crop rotation. Okay, I'll admit that's always sounded a bit intimidating to me.
I get it, but it's actually quite simple and incredibly beneficial. Essentially, you're just changing up what you plant in each area of your garden from one season to the next.
I see. So it's like giving your soil a chance to recharge.
Exactly. It helps prevent soil depletion, interrupts those pesky pest cycles, and even reduces the need for synthetic fertilizers.
Working smarter, not harder. I like it. And speaking of working with nature, our sources were really big on beneficial insects.
They're essential allies in any sustainable garden.
I mean, did you know that a single ladybug can polish off thousands of aphids? It's amazing.
It really is. And choosing the right plants can be like assembling your own little superhero team of beneficial insects. That's where things like heirloom and native varieties come in.
Ooh, heirloom varieties. Those are like the vintage band teas of the plant world. Tell me more.
Well, they offer unique flavors and colors that you often won't find in your typical grocery store produce. Plus, they're often more adaptable to local conditions. And native plants, well, they're the true locals,
I
right?
got the home field advantage.
Precisely. They've evolved to thrive in your specific climate, making them naturally resilient and relatively low maintenance.
So if we're going for sustainability and success, heirloom and native varieties are the way to go.
Absolutely. And here's the thing. You don't need acres of land to get started.
Mhm.
Even a window box overflowing with herbs is a fantastic first step into the world of sustainable gardening.
It's not about being perfect, it's about just starting somewhere, right?
Exactly. Plant those seeds, even if they're just basil and cilantro for now.
I love that. Speaking of planting seeds, I'm really curious about the mental health aspect of gardening. Our sources mentioned some pretty amazing benefits.
Oh, they did. And this is where things get really interesting. Did you know that studies have shown gardening can be as effective as moderate exercise for boosting mood? It's true.
Wait, really? So it's not just about being out in the fresh air and sunshine. There's actual science backing up that feeling of bliss you get after digging in the dirt?
You got it. It makes sense when you think about it. You're connecting with nature, you're engaging in this mindful activity, and there's a real sense of accomplishment that comes with seeing things start to grow.
It's like the ultimate before and after photos, right? Except you're not just renovating your living room, you're nurturing a whole ecosystem. And speaking of connection, one thing that really stood out in the research was the community aspect of gardening.
Absolutely. Community gardens, local gardening clubs, even just something as simple as a seed swap with your neighbors. It's not just for seasoned pros, you know? It's a great way to connect with people, share tips, swap stories, maybe even offload some of that extra zucchini.
Okay, but let's be real. Zucchini abundance aside, even the most enthusiastic gardeners run into challenges, right? What about those moments when things just don't go according to plan?
Oh, it's all part of the process. But that's the beauty of it. For almost every gardening challenge, there's usually a solution. And our sources were jam-packed with advice.
Give us the highlights. What are some of those go-to gardening lifelines?
Well, overwatering is a common one. You'd be surprised how many people accidentally drown their plants with good intentions. So the simple finger test is your best friend there.
Finger test, break it down for us.
Okay, so before you water, you're just checking the soil moisture. Stick your finger into the soil up to about your knuckle. If it feels dry, go ahead and give it a drink. But if it's still damp, hold back on the watering can.
So simple, but so smart. What about those pesky garden pests? They can really put a damper on things.
Absolutely, prevention is key. And that's where those beneficial insects we were talking about earlier come in. Your ladybugs, your lacewings, even those tiny parasitic wasps that sound kind of scary, but are actually on your side.
It's like building your own little army of garden protectors. I
Uh,
love it.
and diversity is key here. The more variety you have in your garden, the more resilient it'll be to those pests and diseases. It's all about balance.
Speaking of balance, we saw a few sources that got into the art and science of really maximizing your growing season. Did you know that you can actually extend your harvest with a little ingenuity?
Oh, absolutely. Things like cold frames, season extenders, they can make a world of difference, especially if you're working with a shorter growing season. Imagine fresh herbs in the middle of winter.
Okay, now that's next level gardening. It all ties back to that idea of sustainability, working with nature's rhythms instead of trying to fight against them.
Exactly. And while we're on the topic of working with nature, we have to give a shout out to one of the most overlooked but essential members of any garden, the earthworm.
Oh, yeah. Those little guys are like tiny little tillers, aerating the soil, enriching it with their castings. The unsung heroes of the garden, for sure.
Essential. Healthy soil is the foundation of a thriving garden, and they play such a crucial role in that.
Right. It's not just dirt down there, it's this whole amazing world of microbes. I always picture them having a little party down there in the root zone.
Right. Sending out invites to all the beneficial fungi and bacteria.
Love it. Okay, but let's talk about the part we actually get to enjoy, the delicious fruits and veggies of our labor.
Mhm.
The sources had some really inspiring ideas for using all that garden goodness.
Oh, yeah. Garden fresh salads and salsas, homemade soups and sauces.
Mm.
The possibilities are kind of endless when you think about it.
I am obsessed with the idea of preserving some of that garden bounty, you know?
Yeah.
Like imagine cracking open a jar of your own homemade tomato sauce in the dead of winter. Instant sunshine.
Right. So rewarding. And don't even get me started on ferments, sauerkraut, kimchi, pickles. It's like capturing the essence of summer in a jar.
Okay, now you're making me hungry. But seriously, beyond just the deliciousness factor, it all ties back to that sense of connection and purpose we were talking about earlier, right?
It really does. By growing even just a little bit of your own food, you become so much more aware of where it comes from, how it's grown. You really start to understand the impact it has.
It's like you're not just nurturing a garden, you're nurturing a deeper understanding of the whole food system and your place in it. And speaking of inspiring stories, the sources we dug into were full of them. We saw people transforming concrete jungles into these lush rooftop oases, revitalizing neighborhoods with community gardens. It's amazing how creative people are getting with sustainable gardening.
It's truly inspiring. And it's not just about the where, it's about the who, the people behind these projects.
Yeah.
One story that really stuck with me was about this woman, Maria, who turned her rural property into like a permaculture paradise.
Okay, permaculture paradise. I am intrigued. Tell me more.
So she's using swales, which are these ditches that help manage water runoff,
Yeah.
planting these diverse polycultures to naturally deter pests. She's basically created this self-sustaining ecosystem in her backyard.
Wow, that's incredible. Talk about working with nature, right? She's definitely mastered that whole resilience thing.
She really has. And you know what's interesting? Even someone as experienced as Maria, she had her share of challenges along the way, Like she had to figure out how to deal with soil erosion, nutrient depletion, but she stuck with it. And it clearly paid off.
It's a good reminder that, sustainable gardening is a journey, not a sprint, right? There are going to be setbacks, there are going to be triumphs, and hey, maybe a few moments where you wish you had a personal entomologist on call.
Totally.
Yeah.
But that's all part of the learning curve. And one thing that really came through in all the research is that you don't have to figure it all out on your own. There's this incredible sense of community in the gardening world.
That makes sense. Sharing is caring, especially when it comes to extra tomatoes and gardening tips, right?
Exactly. We saw so many examples of people creating community gardens in these unexpected places, sharing their resources, teaching each other. It's really heartwarming.
Like a big green support system, all united by a love of plants and this desire to grow food in a way that's good for the planet.
It is. And that sense of community, it ripples out beyond the garden gate, too.
How so?
Well, when you choose to grow even a little bit of your own food and you're doing it sustainably, it's like you're part of something bigger, you know? This whole movement that values biodiversity, protecting our local ecosystems, the health of the planet.
It's like casting a vote for the kind of future we want to see, one homegrown tomato at a time. Which, speaking of, remember those aha moments we were talking about earlier? The mental health benefits of gardening? Well, I found this fascinating connection in the research.
Oh, I'm all ears.
So it turns out that connection to nature, that feeling of being part of something larger than yourself, it actually plays a huge role in all those positive effects.
That makes so much sense. It's not just the physical act of gardening, it's the whole mindset that comes with it, you know?
Yeah.
Patience, observation, this respect for natural cycles.
Yeah.
It all contributes to that feeling of well-being.
Absolutely. And honestly, that's something we could all use a little more of in our lives, right? No matter where you live, how much space you have, whether it's a window box full of herbs or a backyard orchard, sustainable gardening gives you this opportunity to connect with nature, nurture yourself, and hey, maybe grow a more flavorful future while you're at it.
I love that. So, as we wrap up this deep dive, tell us, what seeds of inspiration are you planting today? Are you going to try composting, maybe seek out some heirloom varieties, connect with a local gardening group?
The possibilities are out there. And remember, folks, the journey of 1,000 radishes or tomatoes or, maybe even a few zucchinis begins with a single seed. Happy gardening, everyone.